When it comes to paid advertising, the solution is not just spend more, the solution is find a better strategy. You give the goodwill, give the value, and lead them down a system that helps educate them to the point where they raise their hand and say, hey, these guys are pretty interesting, I've got this problem, maybe they can help me solve it. I personally don't want a flood of leads when I'm starting out. If I am a one-man band and I'm running every single thing in the business, I don't want to have a bunch of low-intent leads flooding my CRM. It's very easy to let a sales engine run away from you and all of a sudden you're on the hook for a bunch of salaries. You've got to continue feeding that with a marketing engine that's getting depreciating returns. The biggest companies in the world invest billions of dollars in doing this. You think this is a one and done thing? Oh, of course not. It's just an endless game. You just got to keep playing. In this episode, I'm going to do something a little bit differently, and that's just riff off the cuff with some of the things I'm hearing and seeing in the marketplace from business owners, from marketing leaders, sales leaders, and what's being shared with me and what problems are being brought to me as well. And one of the big ones is businesses just feeling stuck and they just don't know why. So every time they try to scale up their ads or increase their output, their expenses lift whilst revenue stagnates or drops off in some cases. And I hear it all the time where naive business owners or marketers will say, can't I just spend more? Can't I just, if it's working, just spend more on it? And obviously if it is working, double down on it, but it's not an infinite scale to the moon. If it was, then all you would need to do is find some winning ads and everyone would become multi-billionaires. It's not how it works. There's something called a law of diminishing return, which essentially means when you start off, things might go parabolic for a little bit. You might get a really fast win and go from 0 to 20, 50, 100K plus per month. And you might be able to do that just from one channel. But eventually that diminishing return is going to kick in and the overall ROI of your business is going to continue to taper if you just keep doing the same actions. So when it comes to scaling beyond that, and that point of diminishing return can hit at any stage. It could be as early as 20, 30K a month. It could be all the way up to 100, 200K a month. I've seen it kick in multiple stages, but we have to know that it is going to kick in. It's not going to be an infinite scale. So when it comes to paid advertising, the solution is not just spend more. The solution is find a better strategy. So most businesses that I speak to, when they start out running paid advertising, they'll run one of two models. One being direct response, the other being a low intent lead gen model. Now both have their pros and cons and neither will scale indefinitely, but I definitely prefer one over the other and I'll share why. So low intent lead gen, although better than nothing, it's a very time intensive approach and typically will yield low value customers for the most part. That's not to say that's true across every vertical and every industry. I know businesses that are running this sort of model very successfully, and it's a very high volume based model, semi-low ticket offer. But if you have anything of substantial value and you're trying to sell something of a high ticket value, then low intent lead gen models typically will burn out very quickly. They'll either burn out your cash or they'll burn out your team. And when I say low intent lead gen, what I mean is things like ebook campaigns, white paper downloads, giveaways, etc., where you're pretending to give something away and just say, hey, this will give you some value, etc. And then you're chasing that person around trying to book them into a call to then obviously sell them. Now, one, it's not a great buyer experience, but also from a sales side, it's very exhausting running that sort of model. And what it typically leads to is sellers over-promising and under-delivering because they need to move through so much volume that one, they're at a fast pace. And whenever they get someone that's close to the end or willing to possibly say yes, they'll do whatever they can to get that yes because they know they're so few and far between because the company is not creating any demand for the company itself. The company is just capturing people's details and then spamming them with a bunch of calls. So as you can probably guess, this is not the play that I recommend unless you're running with a lot of automation sequences, AI conversations, etc., to filter through those conversations. It's not relying on manpower. And you flip it at least to have the buyer in mind. And don't just start chasing the buyer around with a bunch of calls, trying to get them across onto a strategy call or this, that, the other, because you're going to create negative buying experiences and you're going to burn out your sales team. As I said, it's better than nothing if you're a solo founder and you're just trying to get off the ground and you don't know how to do direct response and you just want to give something away so you can start talking to people. better than nothing. Have the conversations. You'll likely burn yourself out. You'll go through a lot of churn and burn. But again, it's better than just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, but I would recommend against it. And if you've ever seen a business try and scale this sort of model, it breaks every single time. Because initially, when you say have a small team, you can at least be somewhat picky with the leads that are coming through. You can filter them out and filter for people who are actually a right fit for the business and who would actually make a good customer. But as soon as you try and scale that and you push into wider audiences with the budget, and then you have a bigger sales team that need feeding with calls and leads, then they're going to start booking and pitching people that aren't really a right fit for the business, but they need to hit their KPIs and obviously earn a living. So they book these people, they pitch these people, they overpromise to get them across, and then that leads to bad buying experience, but also high customer churn on the back end. You don't have loyalty in the brand, you don't have loyalty in the customer. It's just a very push-orientated energy sales process and business model, which runs out of steam eventually. Every time I've seen a business run this model, it has always run out of steam at some stage. They either get stuck at a particular level and they circle that level for years, or in the worst case scenario, which I actually saw happen to a company that I worked at for a little while really early in my career, we actually went out of business because a bunch of those dissatisfied customers banded together and tried to sue the company. So the company had to pay them out to keep them happy and dried up all their capital. So they had to go out of business. Now that's an extreme case, but it can happen when trying to scale this sort of model. So if we refer back to the buyer's pyramid, a low intent lead gen model typically will appeal to the widest segment of the pyramid, the people who are problem unaware, problem aware, possibly solution aware. Typically not going to be appealing to people who are already in market searching for vendors, because they would have done that research already, so they're not going to be downloading extra things like that. But some will drip in, but the vast majority will be that wider base. Now that just obviously means there's going to be a ton of sifting and filtering to do, which again, some verticals, some industries, if your product and offer is catered for that, it can definitely be a profitable model and system to run. But if you do anything of a reasonably high ticket nature, typically not. So the opposite to that is direct response. Now, if we again refer to the buyer's pyramid, that's appealing to the top 10% who are already in market. So we're putting the problem and the solution directly in the market and looking to capture already existing demand that is in the market. So people that are looking for this sort of solution. Now, creating demand for your brand, not just creating demand out of thin air, but creating demand for your brand is another story, but that's typically through content and things like that. This is putting a direct offer into market and seeing who resonates. The reason I like going down this path initially is because it gives you fast feedback loops and a good gauge of really how your offer's resonating in the market for those people who are already in market. So this allows you to really position the prize frame or the authority frame around your offer, around your business, from marketing all the way through to scale. From marketing all the way through to sales, using things like scarcity and exclusivity, such as waitlist or application-only offers, to position your business as an exclusive authority in the space. The downside, again, is the limited scale that can achieve, because obviously if there's only 10% of a given total addressable market in market, we could scale out of that very quickly. You could end up hitting that at $100 a day, $200 a day, $500 a day. It really depends on the size of your addressable market, but you could scale out of that quite quickly. So it's not infinitely scalable again, but it gives us fast feedback loops and helps us position the company as more of an authority, so that when we do create demand activity, producing content, boosting content, and you might even have some form of giveaways and ebooks and things that you give away, you just don't enroll them into a sales process where you're hounding them with calls or emails or messages every single day trying to get them to book a call. You give the goodwill, give the value, and lead them down a system that helps educate them to the point where they raise their hand and say, hey, these guys are pretty interesting. I've got this problem. Maybe they can help me solve it. The upside is we won't be hiring a giant sales team, because we've got this illusion of thousands of leads coming in when they're all trash. We can scale our sales team and in tandem our expenses based on the genuine demand that we are capturing that have a high likelihood of conversion, because they actually want what it is that we're offering. But another downside I commonly see with businesses that do go down this path is they get stuck in a boom and bust cycle with their ad account. They'll start off a direct response campaign, performance starts great, they scale it up, they spend, and then they hit a sticky point. and then all of a sudden performance really drops off, the quality of inquiries drops off, they've pushed out of the in-market, pushed out of that 10%, and they freak out and they go, oh man, my ad must be fatigued, etc. So they turn that one off, or they scale back the budget, they start working a new one, which is just a variation of this one that's scaled up. They start that one at a low budget again, they scale it up, oh my God, it's working again, and all of a sudden they hit that ceiling again. And they just go through this cycle consistently, and their business, again, similar to the low intent lead gen, just gets stuck, and they circle around the same revenue level, same growth level for months or even years, because they're just trying to only capture the in-market demand. They're not creating any demand. So if I'm saying that the two models that businesses generally start with don't scale, what's the answer? What's the solution? How do we actually scale an ad account and scale an overall marketing system? We build a portfolio of ad messaging that matches the selling system we have designed for that segment of the market. So again, if you have a high volume selling system, you've got a bunch of call centers and a bunch of people just smashing phones, etc., this is not going to apply to you. One, it's not a sort of business I like. They are really annoying to me. I hate it, getting spammed with a bunch of calls from businesses, but obviously some operate that way and some operate very profitably that way. So power to them, but this is not that sort of model. This is looking for high value customers and converting customers that not only pay more, that value your work, that hang around for a long time so you have low client churn, and build a long-term sustainable engine that doesn't rely on ground and pound every single day and churning through sales team after sales team. So depending on the stage of your business, for example, if you were just starting out, I personally don't want a flood of leads when I'm starting out. If I am a one-man band and I'm running every single thing in the business, I don't want to have a bunch of low-intent leads flooding my CRM. I want to have people that have high intent, have some sort of respect for what we do, and I want to find a unique angle that sets us apart, that attracts those in-market operators, people who are already looking for solutions like this, that see our unique angle, that see our approach to it and think, oh wow, that's a little bit different. Let's check out what these guys have got to offer. And as I mentioned, that can definitely be complemented with some demand creation activity over here, giving resources away freely, ungated, to provide value, to get people into your ecosystem, to get people into your world. You might even initiate conversations with them through Messenger, see if there's anything you can do to help, etc. And if they are interested in the sort of solutions you provide, you can put the opportunity out there to go through a transition bridge, which is a piece of sales collateral that I'll typically use to filter and qualify prospects. I generally won't want to just offer a call to someone straight off the bat, because if I'm a solo operator, my time is pretty tight as is. But even in a high performance sales team like I've been in, my time was still super precious. Yes, I'll have my prospecting period of time where I'll be initiating conversations and starting with people, etc., and just building relationships there. But I'm not going to be booking in discovery calls or sales orientated calls with people who have no sales interest. If I'm having a call with someone that hasn't indicated any sales interest, is a relationship building call. It is just a general nurturing call. I'm not going to try and enroll them into the sales process just because I need to hit a KPI of doing X amount of discovery calls because my boss said so. And that's again what most people will do. They'll say, hey, we've got some free strategy sessions, or we've got some free consulting calls. It's 30 minutes. It's valued at $500. Do you want to book one in? And then they'll use that as like the trick and the trap. Reason I don't like that is because it puts you in a beta position straight away. Yes, you're kind of being seen as the expert, but you're bait and switching this person. The intent's different, and then you've got to go through a bunch of people to find the ones that actually do have intent. Whereas if I can build a relationship, enroll that relationship into a transition bridge to establish the intent, and then once there is intent, then take the call, I know that my time output from an efficiency perspective is going to be way higher than if I was just talking to everybody and getting nowhere. So when we hit the cap and we push outside that 10%, we can pivot the offer to something that is going to be more mass appealing, such as promoting our transition bridge. That could be an event or a workshop, something that's going to appeal to people who are lower in their state of awareness, but we can use it as an educational play to bring them up with us without trying to trick them into calls or things like that. And high pressure them into any sort of conversation from there. So when we operate this way, we don't only get higher quality leads, which is great. Obviously, not all leads are created equal. We want higher quality leads continuously, but it also leads to higher quality clients as well, because we're not having to over exaggerate claims to get people through our sales system out the other end and then leave them disappointed on the back end. They're getting educated through our process to understand how we work, how we help, all the nuances, all the ups, the downs, the pros, the cons, so that by the time they've come to a buying decision that we're the best solution for them, and obviously we've influenced and helped that journey, they're going to be a client that sticks because they're a client that has been indoctrinated in our philosophy before becoming a client versus someone that's been bought in based on hype and, again, over promises. First, find your USP. What is your unique angle that you can hit the market directly with to siphon demand away from other operators, away from other competitors? What is that unique spot where you can capture the current in-market demand? You could do this by, say, myth busting. Say there's some general myths around your particular vertical. For example, as a really simple one in the fitness industry, the myth could be you can't lose weight and eat cake. Your one could be, hey, I'll show you how to lose weight and still eat the food you love. That's obviously a common one that a lot of people in that space do. So that's an example of myth busting. The other example could be like throwing stones or creating an enemy. This works best when there's a lot of shady stuff going, or lower tier operators in an industry, such as like the business coaching gurus or even the agency world. There's some very poor operators in the agency world. So you can throw stones at all of them. Especially if your offer is counter or different to that space, you throw stones at them, position them as the enemy, and position yourself on the side of your prospect. That sort of angle works really well for my clients when we can pull it off. Or you might simply just have a superior offer. If you've got a better offer, put the offer out there that addresses the big pain points that your competitors may not have solved yet. Or even just UGC testimonials that give social proof and things like that. So there's a number of ways to start capturing in-market demand, but you need to understand your audience at a deep level so that you can position yourself to capture it. The reason starting off this way as opposed to a low intent lead gen model is not only will you get the insights and the feedback on where you're really positioned in the market, but you'll be way more time and dollar efficient, which especially in the early days is super important. But even when you're more established as a business, it's very easy to let a sales engine run away from you and all of a sudden you're on the hook for a bunch of salaries. You've got to continue feeding that with a marketing engine that's getting depreciating returns, and you're trying to scale it out. And again, as I said at the start, everything expense-wise is going up, but revenue-wise is staying the same or going down. We don't want to end up in that position, and the low intent model just won't give you that direct in-market feedback that we need to understand to attract our ideal customers, our ideal prospects. So if we're aiming to improve and iterate rapidly, we need to get those insights. But even with that higher level of intent, there is still more work to do. We've still got to jump on calls. We've got to get in the DMs. We've got to have conversations with the people that we're attracting. The weakest thing I hear from sellers or business owners is, my lead sucks, I must be targeting the wrong audience or something like that. And then they don't do anything besides play in the ad account and just try different interests and stuff like that. If the leads are coming in, they're attracted to something in your message, whether they're good or bad. Something in your message is attracting those leads. So if they're not a good fit, you need to have those conversations so you can find out why they're attracted and stop saying what is attracting those leads. And for the ones that are a good fit, you need to say more of what is attracting them. And this is just a never-ending process of iterating and refining, testing, measuring. The biggest companies in the world invest billions of dollars in doing this. You think this is a one and done thing? Of course not. It's just an endless game. You just got to keep playing. So from there, once you start getting leads and seeing some progress and attracting quality conversations with people who are a right fit, now you can start to apply filters to the message. So you can start to add additional questions before someone can become a lead. You can apply the transition bridge. You can apply forms and questionnaires and things that will just filter people through so that you can try and improve the quality that is coming out on the back end to, again, improve the efficiency of time and the dollar efficiency as well. So start with basic question filters, some of the criteria that make your best ICP, and we do this to eliminate potential time wasters. Then scale this up until you hit that sticky point. Then start diversifying your messaging angles to appeal to different stages of awareness. Possibly then introduce, say, a workshop or a VSL to widen that out and start educating people a bit more through the process. And again, add another layer of friction so that as we scale up budget, as we expand our reach, as we expand our presence in the market, and more people start to pay attention to us, we've got these filters siphoning people out so that our sales team and our time is just not getting consumed by, for lack of a better term, a bunch of time wasters. And then lastly, once you hit a capping point on that model, which by then you would likely be around in sort of an 8-figure bracket, that's what I've been able to reach with a couple of companies, not my own companies, but as a revenue leader within those companies running this model, we hit the 8-figure level with those first 3 steps. Then from there, we introduced a low ticket community to start using that as the filter. So people would go in there first to learn about who we are, what we're about, etc. And then they could apply from within there to work with us in our higher ticket offers. And another thing, you might consider just diversifying platforms across, say, moving from Facebook to YouTube, to LinkedIn, to TikTok, etc. And just again, expanding your reach. Now to stress, this is the acquisition side. There are many other areas to a business, from operational efficiency, client delivery, content, media distribution, finances. Like, a business is a vast, big machine. So this is not a golden ticket to success. This is not business advice. This is sales and marketing. Important verticals of a business, but not the only verticals that will determine your success. So the reason the couple of businesses that I was a revenue leader in went from sub 7 figures to 8 figures in the time that I was leading that revenue team was because the product was good, the offer was good, the messaging was good, the operations were good, the support was good, the financials of the business were good. Everything in the business was sound, and that's what helped it grow. If we had just ran a marketing and sales engine, but everything else was terrible, the business would obviously just be a big leaky bucket. So don't take this as advice or gospel of how to scale a business or anything like that. This is just sales and marketing. So don't confuse the two. So that's it for this episode. I'll review this and see if it was any good, if we continue to do ones this way in more of an off-the-cuff fashion. But if you're watching this, hopefully you got some value, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Revenue Mechanics.